What's going on, everybody? This is Living in Arizona Now, and today we're going to talk about the worst places to live in Arizona. Let's do it. As always, there will be timestamps below in the description so you guys can bounce around from location to location to see exactly what places there are on this list. The way this list was put together was based off of crime statistics and opinions based off of locals here in Arizona. First place to talk about is going to be South Phoenix. Now, South Phoenix is one of the oldest areas in Phoenix, but when it comes to crime, it is up there among the most dangerous areas to be. The real area to avoid is going to be just north of South Mountain and south of the Salt River. This is the area where it's a little bit more industrial and higher crime rates. Also, if you go around the area of Madison towards the southwest side of downtown, you will see a lot of homeless encampments. There are some nice neighborhoods around South Mountain just because of the fact the mountains are so beautiful and it is a preserve. But once you start heading towards the Salt River, that's where it really starts to get a bit fuzzy. And it's got some of the highest crime rates in all of Metro Phoenix because of gang culture and all that. The average median home price around here is around $350,000. So it does have a lower income housing area right here. Also, if you go a little bit further west, you'll be in Tolleson. The main thing that goes on out here is industry. And because there's so much industry and lacking in residential, it does tend to attract a little bit more of a rough crowd. And it's right along the railroad tracks out here. But as you can see, there is some new construction going on out here in South Mountain. So there is gentrification taking place, so to speak, where they are trying to urbanize and modernize the area, kind of taking it out of that rough, rugged kind of feel. Next up is another area in Phoenix. This here is known as Sunnyslope. Now it is up against the Phoenix Mountains Preserve. This is actually around the place known as Pietzwa Peak. Also, you have Cave Creek Road comes right through here. The funny thing about this area is right down the road is the Arizona Biltmore Estates. So it's kind of a rough area right up against Sunnyslope, and then you're in one of the best areas in the Biltmore in Phoenix. So it's kind of a weird dynamic, I know, but Central Avenue essentially starts right up here in Sunnyslope. But as you go around Sunnyslope, you'll be like, yeah, I don't really know if I want to be here. Nothing really against Sunnyslope. I like all these areas in Arizona, by the way. It's just I'm letting you know that if you talk to some locals, they'll tell you South Mountain and Sunnyslope are places that you probably don't want to live. And as with South Mountain, there is a problem with drugs and some gangs. It's more the drug situation that's going on out here along Cave Creek Road in the Sunnyslope area. The interesting thing is there are some nice homes here. It's just right there along Cave Creek Road, Dunlap, Northern. That area is a bit rough. But as you start proceeding down Central Avenue, you'll see some really beautiful homes. Sunnyslope's also a very old area of Phoenix. There isn't any new construction projects really going on around here. You can find some cheap apartments and some mobile homes around here, also some smaller homes. My mom used to live in this area for a little while. That's how I know that she didn't really recommend it to too many people after living there. By the way, you'll know you're in Sunnyslope because you'll see a big S on the mountain. The average median home price around here is about $370,000. Next up, we're moving down south of Phoenix. This is about an hour away from Phoenix. It's called Coolidge. Now, Coolidge has been getting a lot of attention because they're building factories down here because of the cheap land. But if you take a drive down the main drag here in Coolidge, you'll see why this is not such an amazing place to live currently. But the interesting thing is there is a lot of new housing developments being built or proposed to be built here in Coolidge. So it could go from a place you don't want to be to a place you might want to be within the next 20 years or so. That main drag is known as Highway 287, by the way. Now here they do have the Casa Grande Ruins National Monument, which is just south of the Gila River. So that's basically what this area is known for. Although it doesn't quite have the same crime rates as Sunnyslope and South Phoenix, the thing that makes this place so undesirable is the way it looks, really. I mean, I had a friend come in from Massachusetts and they love Arizona, and they said, you know, I finally went to the first place in Arizona I didn't like, and they were referring to Coolidge. They said they drove down the road in Coolidge and was like, no, I would not like to live in this place. So just keep that in mind. Coolidge doesn't really look that good, but it could change really quickly in the next 20 years. Coolidge is also another place where they don't have the best schools, so the literacy rates do suffer for that, and there's not much opportunity for intellectual and economic growth here. And as far as what does a night out on the town look like, well, there's not too much going on unless you're going over to your friend's house. As far as food goes, they have a couple fast food joints right along the main drag and not very much else. So eating out, going out, not something to really do out here. And that's what puts Coolidge on this list. And what we're going to do now is we're going to head just down the road a bit, 30 minutes, and end up in Casa Grande right here along the I-10. Now, Casa Grande is sought after by retirement people. So if you're a retiree, Casa Grande might pull up on your list. But everyone else probably doesn't really want to end up in Casa Grande because it's really not the place to be. It doesn't have a lot going on. It's very hot in the summertime. In between Phoenix and Tucson, really, it's kind of been a pit stop along the way where you get gas, maybe a bite to eat. They used to have the outlet mall, but the outlet mall went out of business out here. The average median home price around Casa Grande is anywhere between $340 to $375 for your average home out here. They do have some new builds, and they have cheaper homes in these mobile home parks that people buy, but you got to pay the fees for living in there. One thing I will say about Casa Grande is it keeps coming up on the list of places to build big theme parks or build big entertainment centers, but the deal always falls through. They actually had a deal to bring Dreamport Village to Casa Grande, and that's because the Interstate 8 and I-10 interchange is right there, which would have made it a perfect place for a large amusement park, which would have basically changed the whole dynamic for Casa Grande, but it didn't happen. And that's kind of been the story of Casa Grande's life. It always kind of comes up on the radar as the next big place to go, and then it just fizzles out and dies off. The downtown area actually looks pretty good, but it's completely sleepy and dead. There's nothing going on down there any time of the day. Maybe an occasional event on the 4th of July or on New Year's, you'll have something going on occasionally. But for the most part, when you're in the downtown area, it's completely dead. Lots of empty structures, no businesses, the lights are off. So downtown Casa Grande needs a facelift. Hopefully it comes soon, but as of right now, stay away. You can still get cheap land out here in Casa Grande that could eventually be worth a lot of money, but you'd have to sit on it for a few decades. All right, from Casa Grande, we're gonna head down south to Ajo. Now, Ajo actually ended up on a list of best small towns, and the reason we put it on there for the best small towns is because people who are looking to be in a real small town are gonna like Ajo. But the thing about Ajo, it's very hot, also cold winters, especially at night. But it's right there on the border, so they get a lot of border patrol activity and the problems that go along with living along the border. And then it's just very arid and dry, not too much going on. They do get occasional monsoons, which can be fun. That's the usual excitement. It used to be a boom town because there was a big mining industry going on there, and that's kind of fizzled down. And right now, you're gonna get a family dollar and a weekend out in Ajo. Pretty much you gotta go down to Rocky Point, Mexico to get any sort of action, or go up to Phoenix. Some people would say, oh, well, why don't you go to Organ Pipe National Park? Well, I would say, how many times are you gonna go to Organ Pipe National Monument before that gets old? So living in Ajo, I would say, not exactly the best place to be. They don't really have any chain restaurants, and the small mom and pop restaurants are very limited. And here is a look at those large mines right next to the city center. Just below Ajo is another town called Y, and it's also right next to the Tohono O'odham Native American Reservation, so keep that in mind. But like I said, they do get border patrol activity over here, which makes it kind of a dangerous place because we've heard stories about illegal migrants crossing the border and then becoming hostile because they're interacting with the cartels down here. So something to keep in mind. But you can have a peaceful lifestyle if you really want to live off the grid. You might encounter a couple situations with the migrants over time, but if you can stomach that, then you should be good out here in Ajo. But the good news is, in Ajo, the average median home price is around $132,000, and there's good reason for that. Whereas the other places on the list, they had really high average median home prices and high crime. Ajo has the opposite problem, low activity and very cheap. And because of the old mining boom, those homes there are at least 40 to 50 years old. You're not going to find any new build here in Ajo. Okay, now from southern Arizona, we're actually going to head to the north. This time we're headed to Winslow, Arizona. That's right, standing on the corner in Winslow, Arizona. Such a mighty fine place to be, or something like that. I don't know the exact words, but that's old Winslow. Well, guess what? It's got high crime. You can look it up online. If you look up the crime statistics, Winslow always comes up in the top 10 for most dangerous places to be in Arizona. But another thing that makes this place really not very nice is the fact that the surrounding environment is barren. It's cold winters with a lot of wind, and then the summers are scorching hot. So not too much grows out here because the vegetation will either freeze or it will cook. And Winslow's barely hanging on as a Route 66 main stop that's kind of hanging on to its old glory from that song. But as far as economic opportunity goes around Winslow, the closest place you're going to find any sort of economic or intellectual activity is going to be out there in Flagstaff. I know it sounds a bit harsh that I'm talking like this, but I'm giving you guys the cold hard facts. There is Sunset Crater and Meteor Crater even closer, where you can work at the national parks or the regular private park at the Meteor Crater. Up to you, but that's about it that's going on out here. It's mostly tourist related, a little bit of local economy, some restaurants, but not too much going on. It is nearby the Little Colorado River and the Native American Reservation. The thing about being close to a Native American reservation is they really don't want you guys on that territory or on that land unless you are Native American. So that's something to keep in mind being out there. It's kind of a place where it's like, what are you doing out here? If you're not really from here, you don't probably want to settle in Winslow because I don't think they're going to really look upon you as welcome. Now the BNSF Railway does go through here. It connects all the way to Flagstaff and beyond, but that railroad can be a bit loud. Also, some people like to settle here because it is so sleepy and way off the grid. It's kind of a place to be out of the beaten path up here in the northern Arizona high country. Average median home price out here in Winslow is $168,000, so that's affordable. Next up, we're headed to Globe. Now, Globe is another town that made the best Arizona small towns because it is a great small town. But if you're not the type looking for a small town, you probably don't want to end up in Globe, Miami area, because it is super sleepy, super boring. There's Roosevelt Lake nearby. That's about the only activity, and some hiking. I've met people who moved to Globe from other countries, and I was like, how did you end up there? And they told me they don't really like it. There's also a casino kind of nearby, but for the most part, Globe has a very small mining community that still exists there with Freeport-McMoRan, so that's something that's kind of keeping Globe, Miami alive. The old downtown area for Globe and even Miami, it does look nice. It's like a historical area. The thing is, it's completely sleepy. Like nothing is going on down there. If you go to either one of those two towns, downtown areas, very sleepy. By the way, it is called Globe, Miami because they're very close to each other. It's like sister cities. Average median home price out here is just under $200,000, but the thing is, there hasn't been any new construction really in Globe for the last 20, 30, 40 years even. There might be a little bit of new construction here and there, but nothing really on a large scale. So everything's really old infrastructure. The homes are old, they might get mold, the crime is fairly high. Globe does rank as one of the highest rated crime destinations in Arizona. Globe is about an hour east of Phoenix. Now we're actually headed back out to Phoenix Metro. This is West Phoenix. This is Buckeye. Now Buckeye is an interesting place because it sits at the base of the White Tank Mountains, which are fairly beautiful, and they have built a very nice resort and community out there called Verrado. But aside from Verrado, there's nothing really going on out here in Buckeye. The thing that makes Buckeye cool is the fact that the Gila River, the Salt River, and the Agua Fria all converge right here in Buckeye, making it a very fertile area for farming. but because of the farming, it smells out here. There's not a lot going on. People move to Arizona because they're noticing that Verrado popped up on the map and Buckeye was considered one of the fastest growing communities. But the truth is, if you move out to Buckeye, you're going to be bored. I mean, you're going to have to go so far to get to any sort of entertainment of value. It's really not too much going on out here in Buckeye. Even though they tried to market Buckeye as the next master plan community, the truth is you don't really want to end up in Buckeye. Down the road a little bit is Goodyear, which is nice if you go up into Estrella Mountain Ranch. But really, I hate to say it, but Buckeye on the way to San Diego or Los Angeles, not too much out here, so I would say skip. Now, I will say this Verrado here does show a glimmer of hope for what could be possible in Buckeye, but it's taken forever to really kind of establish itself. It's nice for the people who live in Verrado, but outside of Verrado, Buckeye is very boring. And just down the road from Buckeye is Glendale, so West Phoenix really isn't considered the best place to be, as you can see. You've seen now Southwest Phoenix on the list. Tolleson is another place that you could add to that list, and there's Glendale. Now, the interesting thing about Glendale is this is where they moved the Arizona Cardinals. They tried to move the Coyotes out here, but the thing is, the truth is, the Coyotes, they had to leave because there's no economic value out here for them. There was no fan base. People come from far and wide to watch the Cardinals, and they go to State Farm Stadium, and if it wasn't for State Farm Stadium and the Cardinals out here in Glendale, Glendale would probably be even worse off than it really is. But they do have Westgate, and they have a nice entertainment area around this area of the US 101, or the Loop 101, I should say. But really, I hate to say it, but Glendale is not the place to be. Unless you're looking for cheap homes, you can find homes around $320 to $340, but it's got high crime. Drivers out here are not very patient. So if you're out here in Glendale, hope you understand, it's just not the place to be. Most people who move to Glendale from out of state, they live here and they say, why would anyone live in Phoenix? Well, it's because you live in Glendale. There you go. Next up, we're headed down to Tucson. The only part of Tucson that really kind of makes this list is going to be South Tucson, down there by the airport and a little bit further south within a maybe a 10-mile radius. South Tucson has high crime. If you look at the list of top 5 most dangerous places in Arizona, South Tucson typically makes that list, along with Tolleson and South Phoenix. So add South Tucson, I should say, to the list of places you should avoid. Now, I want to say, final thoughts on this whole list. I know some of you guys who live in Arizona might end up living here and saying, hey, bad list, why did you say such a negative thing about these places? For some people, this is good places to be. I mean, if you're looking for some peace and quiet, some of these towns might be for you. Or if you're looking for more of that cheap, affordable lifestyle, some of these places might be for you. It's just, I'm making this list as a general consensus of what people would say are the least favorable places to live. I could have added Bullhead City to the list, and I could have added a couple other places, but this is the list. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, consider subscribing and liking the video. Also, watch some more of these other videos. I'll put a small towns video, and I'll also put a travel guide.